Guys, it's me, Michelle360, and this is my final review for W, episodes 15 and 16, and I'm going to start with a summary, and then hopefully I can go back and talk about how I feel about this series. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. But just know, for the most part, there was probably some mixed reaction to the finale of W because it didn't have a completely happy ending, and there was one character demise that I think a lot of us felt very deeply. However, in keeping with the tone of this show, I really don't see where this show could have gone any other way other than being right there where it was. So when we started episode 15, we are right where we left off with episode 14. Kang Chul is standing outside of the building where he was beaten and tortured, and he's trying to get a taxi to take him to the hotel to pick up Yoonju. Yoonju's standing outside the hotel waiting for Kang Chul, and our father is trying to get a taxi to take him to the hotel so he can go see Yoonju too. Now, what we didn't know is that in the time since Yoonju awoke in the hotel and when father goes outside, he's made some plans in the W universe, and one of the things he did is that he created his artist cottage in the W universe. Also, he hid another copy of the tablet in this artist cottage, which that will come into play later. So at the same moment that everybody is supposed to be headed to the hotel or headed outside of the hotel, all of a sudden time changes and everyone is in the W-verse. They're in the W-verse, and Kang Chul, I think he's the first one that gets sent back to the W-verse. He is found by the prosecutor because he's sitting right outside where they tortured him. They throw him at the door of a hospital, and he ends up going to prison. During that time, father is in the W-verse, but he doesn't know what's going on. Every person he's looking for, like, he's at a different part of the storyline, so it's all twisted up. He sounds crazy. Also, father is struggling with the fact that coming back to the W-verse, his personality, his soul has been split. He's now half himself and he's half the killer. So that's another conflict that's happening. Somehow or another, though, Yoonju doesn't get back to W until a year later. So when she gets back to W, by this time, everybody knows that Kang Chul is alive. He's in jail, and he's facing, some serious jail time for these murders that he's been accused of committing. Also, father, he's been in a mental institution for a year, and for good reason, because on the one hand, he is dad, and he's, just worried about what's going on with his daughter, worried about if he's going to be stuck in this world forever. He doesn't have anybody who knows who he is. He can't prove who he is. But he's also got the killer, who is a mindless, soulless, depraved person, and all he wants to do is hurt people to be able to complete his final task of destroying Kang Chul. So somehow or another, father is able to get out of the insane asylum on the same day that Yoonju reappears. And when he gets out of the insane asylum, he manages to choke to death a woman who works there. I'm going to assume it's a nurse or a caretaker of some sort. And he makes it back to his artist safe house. And when he gets to the safe house, he starts drawing things to help Yoonju and Kang Chul find him. First thing he does is that he helps Kang Chul escape from jail. Second thing he does is give Kang Chul directions on how to find him. And luckily, Yoonju is hooked up with Kang Chul's people, so Kang Chul is able to grab her, and they both go to the cottage. When they get to the cottage, dad has tied himself up because he realizes that he's, got these two split personalities he's been dealing with for a year, and he wants to make sure that he is safely restrained because he knows a part of him, that killer part of him, wants to harm Kang Chul and wants to kill Yoonju. So he's tied up to the bed. Kang Chul gets there first before Yoonju does, and he and Kang Chul have a heart-to-heart about the fact that he wants Kang Chul to end him. And he basically states it that being this split soul, he has all of the bad memories from every single thing that the killer did. But more than that, that morning when he had killed the lady at the mental institution, that was him doing that. It wasn't just the killer. He was involved with that too. So he's got blood on his hands now. His soul is stained. And he also realizes that with everything that's gone on so far, with all the rules of the world and all the creation versus creator, stuff that's been going on, the only way that there can be a happy ending for one character is if there's a sad ending for another. And it doesn't mean basically like somebody's got to suck in order for somebody to be happy. He's talking life or death here. And that life or death struggle has more to do than just, my daughter can only have a happy ending with her dad or with her boyfriend. It's also about the W world in and of itself. There is this kind of symbiotic relationship going on between the artist Sung Moo and going on with the W world, and that this is the world he created. But all throughout this story, we've had evidence of this world trying to fight for its own existence, trying to assert its free will, trying to become something independent and out of the dominion of the creator. And so the only way the story can work is if either the creator is destroyed or the creation is destroyed. And so the father now understands, with him having committed a murder, that he's no better than this world that he's imbued with violence and power-hungry people and people who kill for no other reason than to cause misery to somebody, to commit the crimes. So now that he's taken all that into consideration, he's saying, I would rather be off to myself than to see you be destroyed, because honestly, you're innocent, whereas I am completely guilty of every single act that's on me right now. So Kang Chul is prepared to go against what the creator wants, because he's just contrarian that way, and he's ready to submit himself to the police and give himself a sad ending, because he's grown to love Yoonju and he doesn't want her to lose her father. And that's understandable. Yoonju's only known him for however many weeks, months, years, whatever, even though she's kind of grown up with the W comic book, whereas her father is her father, and he's always been her father. But even before the whole creation versus creator thing happened, her father has been in this kind of self-destructive spiral, if you will. Yes, W gave him a lot of success and a lot of fame, but he was still a raging alcoholic. He was still struggling with insecurities. He was still alone after all of these years of giving up his family. All he had was his work. So it's not extreme to believe that perhaps his already pre-established depression, plus the fact that he's committed things completely outside of his moral code, I don't think there was ever a chance for the father to have salvation. So somehow or another, the prosecutor, after Kang Chul escapes, he realizes that the tablet must be back in play. That's the only thing that could explain why Kang Chul was able to escape. And so the prosecutor ends up kidnapping one of the people from Kang Chul's camp, our favorite, our second in command, and he grabs the cell phone from the second in command and tells Kang Chul, you need to show up where I'm at with the tablet, and then I have questions you need to answer. And before Kang Chul shows up, his second in command basically spills the beans on all this two world stuff. And the prosecutor's hyped, because finding out that there's two worlds and he's got this tablet that he can pretty much manifest anything into reality, of course he's thinking time to take over both worlds. Like I am a god now. So he wants Kang Chul to show up with the tablet. Kang Chul, of course, does not show up with the tablet, because there's just no way he's going to let it get into the hands of a crazy person like the prosecutor. The prosecutor ends up shooting him and is ready to off Kang Chul, but they have a fight, and somehow or another, Kang Chul manages to best the prosecutor without killing him. Now, he kills the other people who run into the room, but the prosecutor, I guess he just knocks him out, which I was surprised about that. Like, when I found out the prosecutor wasn't dead, I was like, oh, okay. But Kang Chul escapes the situation, but he is mortally wounded. And his car runs out of gas, and he calls Yoonju to let her know that he needs her to come and get him because he's stranded. And they have a bit of a communication issue trying to figure out where he is, because Yoonju's in a hotel room with her dad, because her dad has had one of those crazy moments where he became the killer and he tried to attack Yoonju. So he's like medicated and tied up, and she's been watching over him while Kang Chul has been taking care of business with the prosecutor. So she can tell by listening to him on the phone, not only that he's hurt, but that he's hurt badly and that he needs immediate attention. So she's trying to get to him, and he's trying to hold on, and they're making their kind of love declarations that they never made previously when they were married in the It Was All a Dream segment of the show. And she manages to get where he is, but when she gets to where he is, it is too late, and as she's running across traffic to try to get to him, a garbage truck runs in front of her as she sees Kang Chul fall over. And when the garbage truck disappears, Kang Chul is dead and she's back in the real world. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. So another storyline that's going on outside of that is the prosecutor goes back to his office. When Yoonju leaves to go get Kang Chul's people show up where Dad is because they asked Yoonju, tell us where your dad is so we can take care of everybody and try to get everything settled. Because, you know, there's too many moving parts here. So Dad ends up disabling one of the men sent to guard him, and he takes care of some unfinished business. He manages to make the prosecutor kill himself. And the way that they filmed it, it was so graphic and so cold-blooded, but at the same time, so justified. So he does that. He crafts a suicide note for Kang Chul, leaves a picture of himself to be given to his daughter, and then he gets in a car and he drives out to see that last moment of his creation. And the last moment of his creation. And this was also a really interesting moment as well. Yoonju is actually his first creation. That's his daughter, created from the love of him and his wife. And then he watches the death of maybe his most famous creation, Kang Chul, and he gets those moments kind of at the same time, and he dies looking at his first creation and kind of melting away. And she's saying, I'm here, and she has no idea that her father is watching her thinking, I'm here too. And it was just a really emotional moment for me. The actor who plays the dad / creator / artist, he has been giving an absolute knockout performance. Somebody needs to give him an award because he has done so much work in this show. It's ridiculous. But yeah, everybody kind of goes back to where they belong, if you will. She goes back, Yoonju goes back to the real world. Kang Chul's left in the W world. Dad is left to the ether. In order for W to perish, he had to die, so that's what it is. The prosecutor's finally gone because there really wasn't any other way to make things happen. You were either going to have to kill him or he's going to keep trying to take over the world. Kang Chul somehow or another manages to be saved. He does a couple of years in prison because, of course, the dad has made a way for there to be evidence left all around that the prosecutor and the killer had framed Kang Chul for everything. Kang Chul makes it out of jail, and when he makes it out of jail, he manages to see Yoonju, and he sees Yoonju at a moment when Yoonju looked like she was about to commit suicide. She's putting on her makeup, and her mom's like, you got a date? She's like, I'm going to go meet somebody. And she shows up at this bus stop, and she starts to pass out. So I wonder if she was committing suicide in that moment, or if she was just exhausted. But anyway, Kang Chul shows up in the real world just at the moment when she's falling over. She wakes up in the hospital. Kang Chul is there. He, of course, tells her, you know, that he's going to be there, tells her how everything wrapped up in the W world. She asks about her father. Now, the father in his suicide note had said, don't tell my daughter that I killed myself. Tell her that, you know, I'm doing great here in the W world. But, of course, Kang Chul doesn't tell her this lie that Dad had set for her. Instead, he just hands the daughter the photograph, and it's understood that it's over. And that's kind of where our show ends. Kang Chul and Yoonju standing at a bridge, looking out into forever, and, you know, hoping to have a lifetime together, hoping to be ordinary, to not have to go through this drama anymore. And there's so many still unanswered questions. There's unanswered questions about what happens to the rest of the characters in the W world because the creator has been killed. Of course, W now can flourish and keep going, but you've got these two worlds existing on a very similar plane. You have to wonder, like, what's going to keep going? Is W a place that we can revisit? Does Kang Chul have access to resources in the W world that he can bring into the real world? How is Kang Chul going to establish himself as a real person? What is going to happen with the mystery of what happened with the artist? I mean, of course, his world, the real world, already knows he was suicidal because of episode 34, book 34 of the W series, but he's gone and there's not any trace of him. So aren't people going to wonder what the hell happened to this guy? I don't know. There are still a lot of unanswered questions here, but I still feel like for what this show has been and all the twists and turns the show has taken and all the questions it's had about, you know, what makes you a free and independent being, questions about free will versus destiny and fate. I think this show has played it out beautifully, and they've really stuck to their guns. They've stayed very thematically accurate, and I think that they've really let us in on a lot of things. You know, in a lot of ways, they've given us two avatars in this series. They've given us the avatar of Subong, who's kind of our reaction guy. You know, he is us trying to deal with all of this happening. He's what we would be if we were a character in the show. Kind of, oh, what? No, ah! You know, he's that guy. But then they also gave us Professor Park. Professor Park is an avatar for all of us who have ever followed a work of art and that have been moved by it. He represents the most maybe obnoxious sort of fan, definitely, but he also represents somebody who just really cares about the subject matter. Somebody who's a real fanboy or fangirl and is willing to like clear their schedule, put everything on hold just to be able to indulge in the art. And I thought that was beautiful. I really thought that was beautiful because in a lot of ways you could dismiss somebody like Professor Park, or they could have used Professor Park to be very ugly about fans because, you know, it is kind of a statement about us who are watching the series. But in a lot of other ways, there were some moments there where you could tell that Professor Park, he was genuinely moved and that he had questions, just like we all have questions. And maybe he was a bit obtrusive when it comes to how everybody's life is, but at the same time he was obtrusive because he really cared about it. Because it meant something to him. Because he's invested in it. And he almost feels like a right to have answers because of his emotional investment with it. So I just think the show was wonderful. I really enjoyed everything about it. I enjoyed the acting. I don't talk about it enough. And I definitely talked about Woo Bin as a character in Uncontrollably Fun way more than I talked about Lee Jung-suk as a character in W. But he was such a sympathetic hero. Every single moment of the show, I sympathized with him. Every single moment of the show, I wanted him to win. Every single moment, he was a perfect man. I mean, he really was the fantasy guy that every girl imagines when she gets old enough to imagine a future with a man. He's morally upright. He's strong, he's smart, he's sensitive, he can be romantic when he wants to be. This show had some of the best kisses I've ever seen in a K-drama in my life. Like, really, kisses that made me uncomfortable because they were so good, but also made me want to keep looking because they were so good. I really liked the way he played this. The lead actress, I never remember her name, but the lead actress who played Yoonju, I thought she did a fantastic job in this show. I think that she was pitch perfect, even though people criticized her for being too cartoonish in the beginning. But I really think that's because in the beginning, she was having to deal with the fact that there are two worlds. So she was very extreme because she's pushed into a very extreme situation. But after that, I feel like every emotion that played on her face, every way she reacted to everything was very on track with what was going on. And it was on track with her getting used to everything. When she got emotionally tired, you could feel that the actress was playing exhaustion to a T. I even like the fact, and this is something that's just a picky point on my side of things, a lot of K-dramas have a formula. You have your main love story, your second lead, you have your bitchy side girl, you have your mean stepmother. In this show, the only people that were truly stereotypical were probably the prosecutor and the killer. But everybody else was so many things. Even Sui, she could have been, you know, the second female lead or whatever, but she didn't even play that part stereotypically. And she made herself a very sympathetic character when you could have felt no sympathy for her. So I really do appreciate the way that the show kept things unpredictable. They really questioned a lot of K-drama conventions, and they made this one of my favorite drama watching experiences. I would love to hear from you guys how you feel about all this, how you felt about the way I've been reviewing the show, how you felt about the show in general, things that I didn't touch on that you would like me to touch on. I'm always open to discussions. I write back to everybody who comments for me, and this has just really been a labor of love for me, and I want to share that love with you. I was full of the feels when this show was over. When this show was over, my mouth was just like, because I needed to take a deep breath and take it all in and also just recognize that this was over. Now, one thing I love about K-dramas is that they have a set beginning and end. You have a K-drama that lasts for 16 episodes, 20 episodes, and then it's over. This was one of the first times in a long time when I watched a K-drama and I thought, I could watch 20 more episodes of this. This could be an ongoing thing. I could go back and forth between these two universes forever. Like, I really wanted to spend more time exploring everything. I wanted to know how commerce works. I wanted to know kind of the trade system between the two worlds. I wanted to do so many things. I wanted to do a heist show based on this. Like, I could totally imagine somebody using the W world to be able to steal and then take those materials and resources you get from the W world, and if they're still concrete and usable in the real world, using that to create fame and fortune. Like, there's so many things that I just want to know about, but it's because the writers did such a good job of pulling us into it. This was just phenomenal. This was just a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm so glad I went through this experience with you guys. I'm so hopeful that you enjoyed your time you spent with me. And yeah, if these writers write another show, please tell me. Not past shows, even though you can leave a list of their past shows just in case other people want to watch those, of course. But I'm just saying, like, if you guys hear of them writing anything else in the near future and I'm still doing reviews, let me know, because I want to watch it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm gonna go back and watch Queen Inyam's Man. That's how much I'm here for it. Like, this was a fantastic experience. Fantastic. All right, guys. I will talk with you later. Definitely top 5. Like, let there be, just in case, maybe I didn't say it, but just in case there's any question about, is this a top 5 drama? This is a top 5 drama. Top 5 of all time. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.